Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, this episode is going to be real interesting, thought-provoking, and somewhat controversial. I'm joined by Latoya Sharice Hall. She's an entrepreneur with a professional background in tech. And in this episode, we discuss business, what it was like for her working in tech, and we also discuss life, dating, and relationships. Now, I can't wait for you guys to hear this one. So without further ado, let's just get right to it. Okay, so Latoya, welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here.
Just to kind of get started, if you want to discuss your background and what it is that you do.
Well, according to Sally Mae, on the money that I owe her, I am a product designer. I have been working in tech for 8 years now or so. Studied design in graduate school, or human computer interaction basically in graduate school. And then I did graphic design in undergrad. But Sally Mae can keep her money. I don't know if she get her money back because I'm tired of working in tech. Okay, it is stressful. And so now I am entrepreneur. And so I really want to focus on helping women primarily who are very, how would you say it? Like, they're just crafty. Like, Black women, we out here, we will make anything. We'll make a hair oil, a body butter. We'll sell some lashes, just to make $1. And I'm here for it, but I also realize that, like, most people don't know product development very well, product management very well, the internet very well. Because let me tell you, the girls only know Instagram and internet and email. That's really it. And so I was like, well, I can come in and help you. That's what I'm really focusing on right now. And it's, I've been working on it for about 3 years. And so it's evolved, and it's like, it's evolved. And so I'm evolving with it. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I recently am unemployed again by choice. So I can actually go full time and focus on my business again.
And what was it like taking that leap of faith where it's like, okay, you're going to go voluntarily unemployed towards making that pivot?
Yeah, so it's the second time I've done it. The first time, let me tell you, it was hard. I was over here like, I work so hard for this career. I make so much money. My benefits, I was like, that first time was really, really difficult. The second time around, I'm like, screw all of you. You can keep your money. You can keep your benefits. You can keep it because I got it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And also the state of California, actually, they have so many support systems for people who are unemployed. So it's like, you need healthcare? Okay, here's healthcare. So it's like my basic needs are actually met by the state, which I'm really, really grateful for. So it gives me a little bit of free time or not free time, but like wiggle room to actually focus on something that I'm passionate about. And then, also I have the support of my family, which I also had before. So my family really supports me. They're just like, we want to see you happy. So it's really easy when you have people who are there to support you. And also another reason why I did leave my job is because in tech, like, people promote these big 6-figure salaries, and they're there. There's no lie to that. You will get a big 6-figure salary. But what you also are going to get is stress, mental health problems, no life, right? So those things were really taking a toll on me. And I said, why am I going to spend all this time stressing? Like, it's making me sick. So a lot of times, even now, like my last job really affected my mental health because I was just mistreated. And so every time I take a sabbatical, which I call these things sabbaticals, I'm like I'm taking some time off. It's for me to actually like reset and rejuvenate and refill my cup because I found every single job I've ever had in the technology industry has depleted me and made me feel less than. And so now going off and venturing off into entrepreneurship and just going at it full time, it's me being like, you know what? I don't need the approval of a white man. I don't need the approval of a promotion. I don't need to do all this to show a company that I'm worthy of more money, or I'm worthy of working on a different project, right? Like I'm skillful, I'm talented, I'm smart. I got the degrees to show for it. Why am I working for someone else? Let me just go do what I know. I can do the same thing I'm doing for someone else who doesn't appreciate it and do it for a Black woman or a woman of color outside the industry who's actually going to appreciate it, right? So that's kind of it's easier the second time around. The first time around, it was difficult, but like it's a mindset shift, honestly. And that's the thing I had to really work on over the years.
So for like having done this the second time now and having that experience, right? Like what would you say is the greatest struggle that you find in terms of making this change in your life?
Financial resources, I would say, that's always going to be it, right? Like America has gotten a lot more expensive in California, where I live, or where I'm from. I'm kind of in and out of California, but California is like exceptionally expensive, right? And what I had to realize over time when I was working on my business, so I've been entrepreneurial for many, many years, right? I've tried and failed. And then when I finally took that year off to kind of go recalibrate, like heal my mental health from a job that really just destroyed me and work on my business at the same time, I had to realize something. That one, if you are a person that has a partner or a significant other and you both maybe made great money, or one makes good money and that one can support you while you going off to do your own thing, that is a blessing in disguise, which I have never had, right? So it's a blessing we have a support system there to kind of keep you afloat while you're working on something and growing something. The next thing I realized is, especially right now on the internet space, on my business space, it's like you see other people promoting, make your first six figures, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. I had to realize this person's probably never made six figures in their life. So you're selling me on this gimmick. And I'm like, and I was buying into it. I'm like, I make six figures, boo. It ain't enough money. So that's the next issue, right? And then the third, most people who can quit their jobs and travel the world and I worked in my business, you're probably white. Okay, you probably have mommy and daddy there to support you. I don't got none of that. My family doesn't have a lot of money, so for me it's about savings, like living off my savings. Like I got a come up story, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I always know like my hustle entrepreneurship is going to be look a little different than everyone else's because I don't have the same resources that those people do. And so that is like the biggest thing. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, you're going to have curveballs. Yeah, all the things that say about entrepreneurship is true. But then there's this different aspect of it when you are not a privileged individual, whether you're privileged by way of a partner that can support you or by way of family or by way of like, I made my first six figures, but you probably already had a savings account that was pretty fat, or mommy and daddy came through and paid your bills, boo. Or you have property that you own and you're getting some money from that. Like you just didn't quit your job and then you had no income.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
And I talked about this on a previous episode, but there's always more to the story than it's being told. So I
Yep.
find like a lot of these like online gurus, they just kind of tell people like, yeah, you just gotta jump 10 toes into the
Yeah.
water, just quit your job. But it's like, no, there has to be a strategy in place, I
There
find.
has to be strategy.
And I find many of them, they don't tell the full story and they leave a lot of details out. Like they'll tell you, oh, here's how you make six figures, not knowing that how they made six figures is by them selling the course that they're selling you. So that's where their
Right.
six figures is coming from someone paying for that course. And yeah, I find the internet, like as good as it can be, there is a lot of noise. Like you really have to be mindful when filtering through it and seeing what information you're taking in.
100%. And I think as people, like eventually I'm gonna have an online course, right? That's the goal. But also it's about showing up as authentic, right? Like when I first started my business, it was just so like money, 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 money. Like people throw money and promote money to other people because that's what we're driven by, right? But then I was like, I've had the money. I've worked at companies with IPO. I got the stock option. I have a six-figure salary. I can go get more money in six-figure salaries at different companies in Silicon Valley, right? It ain't the money that makes me happy. It's my freedom that makes me happy. My happiness makes me happy, right? And if I'm going to be stuck behind a desk, like whether you're on your own business or not, right? You're still behind the desk, depending on how you set your business up. It can be miserable. So for me and my I don't even call it strategy. It's about showing up as my whole self, showing up as just me. Like I'm the same person at work as I am talking to you on this podcast, right? Like there's no difference. So I'm going to show up the same way in my business. You know what I mean? Like, but that's what people like me because I just show up and I be real and I just be talking to people like just talking. Like on my stories, I just be chit chatting, blah, 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 but it brings people closer to me. They feel a connection with me. And that's what's really important to me. Building connection, relatability, being open and real, and also flexing my expertise because I am an expert. I got a whole master's degree. I am an expert. And like letting people know, like, hey girl, like this is hard. And like, yeah, I get it because I come from maybe the same background as you. Here are some strategies that you can use I know are effective, to get you from 0 to 100, not real quick, but like just effectively.
And have you thought about like, I guess like the target customer or the target market that you would want to work with and that you believe would like benefit from your services and your expertise?
Yeah, so it's interesting because what I would have said 3 months ago is like, yeah, I want to focus on e-commerce. And I still want to focus on e-commerce, but specifically e-commerce for people who DIY their own stuff, whether you make like greeting cards or hair oils, right? And or whatever, candles. And then after talking to one of my online business friends, actually not her, I'm talking to my girl who does my eyebrows. She was like, honestly, you might want to just focus on beauty and wellness because you're so into that. Like, I'm the kind of girl, I'm gonna get my nails done, my brows done, my hair done. I'm gonna go ahead and get this like body contouring. I'll do it all, right? So then it made sense, like, oh, I should actually focus in that specific niche. So right now, I'm even doing more research, right? I think that's the biggest thing about entrepreneurship. Like, it's never you might get lucky and find that like that sweet spot, but honestly, having worked behind the scenes, it's just a constant pivot. You have a like me in particular, and I think a lot of people in the technology industry who want to venture out, because I've had conversations with people that still work in tech that want to go into entrepreneurship and do their own thing. We have these set of skills that are really useful inside of a tech company. When you take it out of a tech and want to put it out there in the world, you really have to find the fit, and it's really like finding product market fit in the wilds. So I'm still searching for that, right? I know I have to pivot. I pivot a lot. I have to pivot to find that right need. And once I find the need, it's a wrap because I know what to do. But I'm still trying to find like where's the pain point and what's the need. And it's interesting because I still get people in my DMs rather frequently. I feel like once, maybe 3 times a month, that are like, hey, I need business help. Okay, I want to launch a t-shirt company, or I have a makeup business, and so I'm interested. It's interesting to see these things coming at me because they're showing me trends and they're showing me niches that I haven't thought deeply enough yet, haven't explored yet. So that's what this week is for. This time off right now. I mean, it's my first day of freedom. Okay, that's not this first day of freedom. My last day at job, and my job was on Friday, this past Friday. So for me, this kind of first couple weeks is really just doing research, and that's what you got to do. You got to find that market, and then once you find the market and the need, then it's like, okay, let me fill it.
Yeah, because I find, especially like with business, like especially in the online space, the biggest challenge that businesses have is the marketing side of things.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Many people, they just focus on like their gift or their talent or what it is they're good at, or they're really good at making the product, but then they have to
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to get it in front of people.
Yeah. Yep.
So I find
Exactly. And
that challenge.
there's also a shyness to it. See, people are shy. There's a technology piece to it. There's a lot of things that go into it, right? And if you've never worked behind the scenes in a company to know all the parts, then they're a mystery to you, and it's going to be really bumpy. And so I just want to kind of reveal the insider stuff to help people, like, okay, you need product marketing, you need ads, you need a launch strategy, you need all these things actually to get your product out there, and just educate people. So it's really about educating women so they can live free and have independence over their lives, times, and their income.
Since you said the buzzword women, right? Being
Yeah.
Seeing as like you're a black woman that was previously working in tech, now you're venturing off into having your own business.
Yeah.
If you want to like kind of compare and contrast, what were some of the difficulties that you found being a black woman in tech, and are you finding similar difficulties in the world of entrepreneurship?
Oh Lord, you want me to talk about being a black woman in technology and entrepreneurship? Okay, I know. So I think entrepreneurship it's different. I well, I'll say this: women are going to support women, and black women for sure are going to support me. So I don't feel that I face the same challenges in my entrepreneurial journey that I did in tech. I think my biggest challenge has been I am such a strategic thinker that I spend too much time strategizing on things and not executing on things. Right? And I know that, and I can proceed differently. But being a black woman out here in this digital space, I know I'm a win because black people, we gonna support each other. In tech, oh, oh my gosh, being a black woman in tech is very difficult. One, I had to realize, I just had this epiphany the other day. I was like, why is it that when we go into these tech spaces and when we feel like or even a woman of color in general, we feel undervalued, underutilized. We feel like have to for promotions and all these things. I had to realize something. That's because we're too fucking great. Like we're just so bomb. And we got so much personality and we got so much culture that when you step into a white space, they don't even know what to do with it. They're so boring and so bland. And I'm sorry for anyone who listen to this and be like, I don't agree. But I'm like, I've worked in these industries for so long. I've sat in the rooms. I've been the only black woman on the team. And I'm looking around and I just be like, it's so dry. It's like a piece of cardboard in here, like every day. You know what I mean? And so that is the challenge, right? When you are so unique in so many ways, culturally, by skin tone, by how you communicate, by the gumption you show up with at work. Now, not every Black woman is like this, but we do have a different level of swag, you know what I mean? That you automatically become like this I don't want to call it oddball out, but you're noticed. And I think those things, especially when you're not afraid to show up as who you are, right? This your true self, as they say in tech, it at least for me, I have found that me just being Latoya unapologetically has allowed non-Black people who have a view of Blackness applying all those stereotypes to me. For example, I was in a meeting at my a couple jobs ago. I was in a meeting, and I had said something like, "Oh, that's." It also in tech, they're always like, "You can cash, you can do all these things." So I was like, "Oh, that's hella cool. Like, I think it will work or whatever." And this my product manager at the time said to me, "Oh my god, you said hella. You are so from Oakland, yo." I looked at her. I just was stunned because I'm Black or because I said hella because I'm ghetto to you. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? I mean, I communicate something. I ain't just talking to bull. I'm actually saying I actually have observed a lot of challenges and issues before I actually, and I think about them before I say something. But when I speak, people think I'm complaining or it's not that bad. Like they disregard. A lot of people like to disregard Black women's feelings and perspective in the technology industry, and probably every industry, but specifically I can speak to technology because I've worked in it. Being disregarded, not heard, or unseen. And then when someone else has to be in that position and they see what I'm talking about, they're like, oh, you are right. Well, yes. Yes, I was right. But I don't know why you didn't think I was right. I'm not just out here complaining just to be complaining. You know what I mean? And so I found that oftentimes, 9 times out of 10, I'm heard, but disregarded. You know, I'm seen, but not considered. And so I'm at the point and I'm like, this is some bullshit. The industry is full of. I don't care how often they talk about diversity. I don't care how many people they hire for diversity inclusion roles at these companies. I don't care how much they do recruiting at HBCUs. I don't care about none of it because it's a lie. Okay, like you get all these Black people in here, and then you stick them on these teams with like one Black person, be like, oh, we solved the problem. No, you didn't. You actually just made a new problem. You really just made a new problem because the person's gonna feel like super isolated. They don't have no one to talk to, right? So honestly, I say this: anyone interested in getting into tech, get in, get your money, and get out. Okay, get in, get the skills, get your money, and then go find something else to do because it's not. To me, it's not a longevity career or industry because there is a lot of ageism in it. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. I don't know about you, but I like to relax. And tech is not a relaxing industry. Everything's on fire in tech. It's like, oh my God, you got to work on weekends. You have to work at night. Working 80 hours is not uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I don't like working 80 hours. I like working like 20, 25, like part time. And so I realized that tech is like you work really hard for your money, and I don't want to work that hard for it. And I realized there's other opportunities to do that when you have your own business, depending on how you set it up. You can make more money in less time.
I find with tech, like one of the things that kind of like turned me off away from it, especially like when I really started researching and looking into it, was it's very cultish,
Yes.
and not in a good way. Like it's very cultish where like, company comes first, right? And like now that
Yep.
company becomes your family, it's like, okay.
Yes.
And so that part kind of rubbed me the wrong way because, I'm the kind of person like I don't want to say work life balance. I believe in doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I'm already in this place for like 40 plus hours a week, why do I need to be here beyond that time? Like I'd rather use it
Mm-hmm.
to go do my own thing, right? And then I
Yep.
just find
Yep.
with tech, it's like even to think like that is like some kind of level of blasphemy where it's like, hey, you can't think that way.
Yes.
The company has
Yes.
right. And then so that aspect of it really turned me off. And then I think also there's really no room for individuality. I find like it's
Yeah.
uniformity across the board. Like everyone has to toe the company line.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
to them, diversity is just hiring more white
It's a
women.
buzzword.
It's just
You said
hiring,
white women?
yeah. Like I find like
Yo.
that's their thing with diversity is like they'll hire more white women and then they might hire minorities, but they're usually gonna get the entry level roles just to say like, hey, we hit a quota. So I
Ooh, not
found
even that. that when they hire Black people, like people of color, right? Because they told me this. Oh, you have potential, so we're gonna put you in a higher role because it actually makes them feel better when they hire people of color and put them in higher level roles than where they're at. But they'll be like, oh, see your potential. We're gonna put you in this role and let you grow into it. I just be like, I potential. Like what? Excuse me? I have beyond potential. Like I'm fine. I can do this job. It's not a difficult job. It's not like we're doctors, right? So you're right. There is a cultish aspect to the tech industry. You live and breathe your job. It consumes you. They want you to fall into the mindset. I remember when I was interviewing with Google many, many years ago when I first beginning my career, and they look for people who are googly. Like, what the hell is that? Googly. You gotta be googly enough to work here. Like that. How is that a piece of criteria? So you're right. It is super cultish. The diversity stuff, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's a buzzword. They claim they don't have enough people in the pipeline to fill for diversity. That's not true. There's plenty of Black people who are talented and people of color who are talented and have great experience and education that can fill these roles because these jobs are not difficult. So it's like you did a good job doing your research and being like, this ain't for me, because look, it ain't for most of us. This is why the industry still has a low percentage of Black people, because it's not a place that's safe for us. It's not a safe industry. It's an industry where either you deal with the mental health problems, like complications that come with it, like all the just everything that comes with it, and you're like, I'm gonna reach the top because that's what your personal desire is. And the rest of us are just like, okay, so no. There are other things I could be doing with my time, with my talent, and there's other industries you can work in that are just going to be much more like laid back and easygoing and still pay you as well.
And I just find like just doing your own thing is just more fulfilling. Like I find like
A
in the end,
100%.
in the long run, I just find that it's more fulfilling. Like yes, it's gonna probably be
Yes.
more work, right?
Yeah. In the
Especially
beginning, yes.
yeah, especially like when you're starting out. But I think like once
Yeah.
you find your footing and you establish yourself and you have like a structured system in place, and I think you find your way.
Yep.
But I'm interested in seeing how this journey goes for you. I know you said like this is just your first day with it, so I'm gonna bring you back periodically just to kind of check in and then see how the journey is going for you and see what insights you
Yeah.
can learn as you go. But yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah, but definitely, I'm wishing you the best on this journey, though, and I want to see, I hope to see some progress, and I want to see you thrive.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to kind of pivot a little bit, so I know you listened to my last episode, and I know you had some thoughts and opinions on it. I don't know whether they're
Yes.
good or bad. We'll find out now. But what were those thoughts and opinions that you had?
Okay, so preface. I only listened to the part about Rihanna. So let's start with the Rihanna ASAP stuff.
Okay.
Now, when Rihanna came out with those initial pregnancy photos, the whole internet broke. Okay. Now, from a woman's perspective, most of us don't even give a damn about ASAP. Like, I heard some news, like, okay, actually on that last episode when you were talking about ASAP got arrested or something like that. Was that on that episode?
That news came out after the fact. I think.
After the fact? Okay.
Yeah, that one I talked about just that there was a rumor of like a cheating. So I was just saying
Oh,
like,
rumor. Okay, there's seen.
yeah,
Okay. So when the whole news dropped about ASAP, I had to be like, ASAP. Isn't that Rihanna's man? I literally had to Google it because I was like, he's so irrelevant. Like, I don't even care. He is behind the scenes to me when it comes to Rihanna's pregnancy, right? Like, that's how, to me, how forgettable he actually is, because the sole focus of his pregnancy is on Rihanna. Now, I said, if he did cheat, there's no hope for none of us. None of us single girls out here. Here's why. If you go cheat, and we have many examples: Cardi B, Beyonce, Saweetie, now Rihanna. If you go cheat on some of the baddest in the game, okay, who are beautiful, wealthy, successful, sex appeal, if you go cheat on that, where is the hope?
I think the points that you're kind of touching on about like how you don't know him, I think that's the point I was trying to illustrate on why he was in the friend zone for all those years because he wasn't her equal. So when she was,
Yes.
so when she was a lot younger, right, like in her mid 20s,
Yeah.
right, and the DMs are going crazy, she's gonna look at who is on her level or who is better. I
Right.
find, from experience and just like observation, I find like that's kind of how women like that's their, I guess, mating strategy, if you want to call it that. It's they want someone equal or better.
Yes. There's the whole concept of like, I need a man that's equally yoked or like doing better than me, right? I think like that piece, because I used to think that too. And I was like, okay, that to me seems challenging to find. Like that just seems really not that I'm like the best out here. Like I'm just like the highest in the land, right? Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like find a man that's like he has because a lot of women be like he need to have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. He needs to have a great job, 6 figures. He needs to be 6 feet tall. All these things. Like you make this long laundry list of criteria, right? Finding someone who's equally yoked and matches that criteria. Then you have to realize like that's a little in a haystack, or he might be married, or he might even be attracted to you, you know. And then tack on like being black in my case, like being black, like it's really difficult to find that. And so, to your point, right, about he was in the friend zone and Rihanna being like, girl, talking to herself like, girl, I am 33, 34. I am a billionaire. I just want a baby now. I hit my goals. I want a baby now. Who can I get that's like, he don't need to be great. He don't even need to be like my level. He needs to be a decent man that wants to have a baby with me. And I think another example we can see of this is Candy from Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Okay.
Candy married Todd because I'm sure you know Candy, right? Like,
Honestly, I don't really watch these
Lord,
reality shows.
okay, okay. Put it this way: Candy is very wealthy. She was in Escape, I think, the girl group Escape, and she's written a lot of songs for a lot of celebrities. So she gets her money from royalties, and she has a lot of businesses. Her husband was just like a camera guy or like an accountant, right? Before they met. Now, obviously, he's brought into the fold of her ecosystem, her empires, but you start to realize, especially in Rihanna's case, like I don't need the man that's at my level. I just need a man that's like decent, not trash. You know, that's like a decent guy that wants to have a family. You know, you start to change your perspective a little bit. I think that's what's happening has happened with Rihanna. But I also saw interviews with her where she said like she's gonna have a baby whether a man was there or not. You know, so I think that it was kind of like, well, there's a guy and he's still into me. Let me just go pluck him and make something happen here.
And that's usually what happens, especially like in the current market, like in the marketplace, I find. I
Yeah,
think that's usually what happens because the reality is that there's no shortage of attention out there,
yeah,
especially females. Like I don't think there's ever been a time in history where women have gotten this level of attention the way they get now. Social media, like
yeah, it's true.
all these dating apps, like they're usually like statistically it shows that they favor women more than they favor men, just in terms of like just from a
Mhm.
numbers standpoint, they have a lot more options, right? We know like psychologically too much options is not a good thing. Like too much choice makes it actually harder to
Yeah,
make a decision, right? So I
yeah,
find that's what creates a lot of confusion. I
yeah.
found like with Rihanna's situation, like obviously I don't know the lady personally, but I have enough understanding that I could be on the outside looking in and I can get an idea and say, okay, this is what happened, and I can give like a play by play, and then it turns out that way, right?
Mhm.
And I think this whole idea of like finding a guy, okay, who makes 6 figures, 6 foot, you know,
Yeah,
you're looking at less than 10% of the US population, right? So I mean,
right.
like, which kind of begs the question then, why is it that average women just don't want to go for an average guy? Because a lot of average guys complain that, the average woman just doesn't, they feel invisible, right? This is what guys complain about and this is what they say. So, average women, like, if they go for an average guy, it's probably less likely that they're going to get cheated on.
Yeah, it's true. Well, partially true, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's less likely because, I mean, they're not in high demand, I guess, quote unquote. There's not as much temptation that would be there because women wouldn't be throwing themselves as much as opposed to the guy in the
Yeah,
top percentile.
yeah.
And then from a time aspect, you'd probably be able to spend more time with a guy like that than a guy who is making all that money and just really just doesn't have the time because he's so busy doing other things.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I have dated a wide range. I have dated like the beyond average looking guy, like drop dead gorgeous.
Hmm.
And then I've dated like the average guy, right? And I think there's no a man gonna cheat if a man wants to cheat. It don't matter if he's good looking or not. So that's my perspective on it as a woman. So I want to address that first thing. Next, I think that so even if you're an average looking guy, it's about where you are in life, like as a man, to determine whether or not you're even going to be seriously dating the average looking woman. And I think that is to me sometimes a disconnect. Like, I think I'm cute, you know, I'm not like, I'm talking myself down. I'm cute, okay? But like, right. So I just be like, what is going on? Like, I've talked to some guys who are just like, you okay, you know? And there's still games, there's still a lot of drama, not drama, but there's just like this not consistent, you know, they're it's just a lot of bullshit, you know, and it's disheartening. So I don't know if there's actually like any real base to like whether you're average looking or not. Yes, if you go for a man that's like really, really attractive, every woman wants him, you're gonna run into some problems. I've had that, like run into some issues. But then again, I've talked to some average guys who had girlfriends, didn't even tell me. I didn't know he was talking to me. And here I got girls blowing up my line talking about this, and I'm like, wait, I'm an innocent person here. You know, your average guy was talking to me. So I'm at the point with dating, I'm like, there's no rules. Like there's no right way, there's no right rules, there's nothing. I feel like it's just luck. It's consistency and luck. You know, you have to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and hopefully you meet the right person. But it's also about like showing up to these new dating, like these new people that you're meeting, and be like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you actually want? So you don't actually get too deep and be like, you was trash, bro. You know?
I think a lot of it is luck. I think it also depends on what you're looking for and how
Yeah.
just like how specific you are looking for it. Like, you know, what
Yeah.
specific things you're looking for, right? Like I find like a lot of times both men and women like they just really don't know what they want. Or
Yes, this is true.
when you're going into something with no idea of what you're looking for, it starts to feel like a chicken with its head cut off. You're just running, but you have no like aim and no direction, right?
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, like I think a lot of times there's a lot of self-awareness. I think that has
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like play a role.
100%.
Like, I always think about like this joke that Dave Chappelle said one time, but he was basically saying like, you know, some guy will be at a club and then like the bouncer won't let him in. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Oh, but I have all the right clothes. I'm wearing all the right things. Why won't they let me?" He's like, "Hey, you have to figure that one out on your own." And the joke behind it is like, you know, the guy's just not attractive enough to get in the club, right? So I think like I don't think in your case, I don't think it's a looks issue. It could be something like maybe something else, right? Like maybe a lot of times like because you strike me as someone who has a very strong personality. And then for a lot of guys, sometimes it could just be something that they want someone that could be a little bit more softer.
And this is the problem, right? Like that is the thing is I don't know, right? I don't know. And it's so interesting you say that, right? Because like what it could be. I've actually had guys tell me sometimes. And sometimes it's that okay, let me back up. It's not a personality issue because I come off as like bubbly and like talkative, right? Like
Mhm.
there's no low moment with Latoya. I just be chit chatting, you know? But what I have been told is like you seem too busy, right? Like, and this is definitely when I was like in the beginning of my career. I was like when I was caught up in that cult culture of tech, right? I was like, I gotta do this, I gotta get, you know, hustle, hustle, hustle. And I would probably be physically present with the guy, but not mentally present with the guy. So I would come off as like, oh, you're just way too busy. Or if I'm on the go, or if I'm just out and about, you know, I think I don't think it's even intimidation. I think that sometimes it could be a guy seeing my life or just seeing how I move, right? And just my outspokenness and outgoingness. And there maybe you're right, maybe you're right, maybe it's intimidation, but like it's shyness, right? Or
Mhm.
like, man, I can't measure up to that. I've had guys be like, I admire you so much. I've literally had a man tell me that I admire you so much. I think you're so beautiful. I want to cook for you. And I was just like, what? But then there's never the like, well, let me take you out. Let's do this, let's do that, right? And I think there's just like that's something to do with me, right? That has to do with them. It's a them problem, not a me problem. I had to realize I used to be the girl, especially in my 20s, where I would be like, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I couldn't understand it. And then I had to realize, like, actually, there's something wrong with me. You
Mhm.
know, you're not gonna be a good fit for everybody, but sometimes it's the man. Like the man has to feel secure in his own emotional space. And I'm not even asking for a whole lot. I'm not asking for you to be 6 feet. I'm not asking for you to make six figures. I'm not asking for you to be none of these like checklist stuff,
Mhm.
right? I'm asking you to be consistent.
Yeah.
You know, like basic human things, like being a good moral valued person. But that is an emotional space and awareness, right? And a lot of reflection and a lot of growth that a man has to go through. And a lot of men, not just men, people, even women, they don't want to do the hard work of working on themselves.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it both sides play a role in it.
Mhm.
I think what happened is like both sides have kind of gotten away from their sense of self. So I think
Mhm.
amongst men, I think there's like a masculinity crisis. I don't know if it's like they don't want to be masculine anymore because they don't see the value in doing it, or if they're just conditioned to not be anymore. Like I can't quite figure it out because I do know like in society, especially as of late, there's really a whole thing about toxic masculinity. So
Mhm.
guys don't know where to draw that line of being masculine when it can become toxic. So I think they just all together said, okay, rather than think about it, I'm just not going to do it. And then I think
Mhm.
with women, like with femininity, I think they've kind of
Mhm.
steered away from it because whenever like there's a woman that's considered like soft or feminine, like sometimes they equate that to being, naive. They're kind of discouraged in a way from being feminine, and they're more encouraged to like be that boss babe, like be that woman that has those masculine traits, right? So I find as more sides go into like they move away from these character traits, I find that it creates more difficulties in the actual dating space.
So I can never talk about male masculinity, right? I met a man. But I can speak to the women part, right? Because that was me at one point, the boss babe, Miss Independent. And I think that when I said to you, like, oh, men say you seem too busy, right? That was that coming out. That was that masculine energy of just like work, killing in my career, blah 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 blah. And other women will tell you it takes a really strong man to like be with a woman like that. I don't believe that, right? I had to realize that like you need to soften up a little bit, right? And I think there's a balance. There is a balance of like femininity and daintiness and softness that women can project, and also, and not just project, just have, but also still be that go getter girl. And I think it's like code switching, right? It's like you can go ahead and like be a girl that goes after her dreams, whatever that is, whether you want to kill it in your career or whatever. And then you turn it off and you come back to your partner. Or when you're out in the scene, it's like I can be feminine and be girly again. And that's what I had to realize. I felt like I wasn't being girly. I was wearing all these tech t-shirts. I didn't really do my hair, my makeup anymore. Right. I was falling into this cult like culture, this masculine, and that's what tech is, is masculine energy everywhere. It's masculinity everywhere. So you fall into that to fit in and blend in, and then you go out and try to date and you just feel like, why is this not working? Like you know, why do I feel uncomfortable or awkward here? The challenge, I think the challenge is when you are smart. I don't think it's being boss babe. I think it's just being smart. When you're smart and a woman and you can actually keep up with a man in a conversation, I think on the topics they want to talk about, whether it's money, technology, sports, like these masculine, some masculine topics that can either turn a man on or make him be like, ooh, like threatened, right? Because they don't expect a woman to be like, keep up with talking about like crypto or things like that. But again, that has nothing to do with the woman. That has to do everything to do with the man. Like that is his fragileness and his masculinity. Now, when you talk to this part about men being less masculine, remember you talked about that last week. I was just like, I don't understand it. Like, I don't get it. And you talk like you and your friend were talking about like the whole like men showing up on social media and then the whole social media thing. And now that you said that, I look and I'm like, yeah, there are a lot more men on social media who are garnering the likes, who are doing the dances. Like
Yeah.
this is a thing. And you're right, it is causing this divide because I feel in a way sorry for men because you're right, you don't when it comes to feminism, right? And like towing the line on that, I find it's like difficult. It's probably challenging to navigate, right? Because you don't want to like make a woman feel like you're a misogynist, right? Or maybe like you just don't understand women's problems. At the same time, it's like, well, instinctually, I'm a man's man, I'm a man, right? So you're right. What do you do with that? You just be like, okay, I'm gonna suppress this, park it, and I'm just gonna show up in the world, just do, and like it doesn't matter, And it's like, okay, so we could talk a whole episode on just this one topic, right? Like, you're right, it is problematic. It's problematic, and I told my friend Saudi, like, there's just a gap. There's a gap now, and it's really hard to fill that gap because the two sides are posing now. They're posing, and yet they still want the traditional aspect of each side. Women really, you know, boss babe, quote unquote, boss babe women still want that traditional man.
Hmm.
That traditional man ain't showing up. He's different now. He's the modern day man. The modern day man still wants a traditional woman, but she ain't traditional. So
I like earlier how you kind of talked about like what like realizing that you had to become more like feminine, because that's what I
mhm,
was trying to allude to when I said you just had to become, I think, a little bit softer. And this is the thing with like that, like the career working thing, right? Is that especially in an industry like tech where it can be very cutthroat. Like I find tech and
yes,
finance, especially, they're very cutthroat industries, right? By default, when a woman goes into those kind of industries, she's gonna have to adopt masculine traits. And that
absolutely.
but that's how she's gonna ensure her survival within the company. But
Hmm.
the hard part is turning that off if
Yes,
you're dealing with a man at that point, right? And I
yeah.
think like with men, like they're constantly being reinforced messages like, oh, masculinity is toxic, masculinity is toxic. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how true this is. I have to look this up for myself, but from what I've heard, like even places like the UK, like for a guy to just cold approach a woman and just ask her out of thin air, that would be considered harassment. So I can get
That's crazy.
I can get the idea of how something like that might be considered a harassment if the guy is bothering a woman, but at the same time, this is how people used to interact with one another, right? So if
Hmm.
someone's just like respectfully and calmly just going up to a woman, just introducing himself, she's not interested. She could just reject him,
Hmm.
right? And then now it's up to the guy at that point. He just has to take the rejection, keep it moving, right?
Hmm.
But it's things like that that kind of make it difficult, I guess, for like men to be considered men. And I think, yeah, social media has been more of a hindrance than it's actually been helping, because now, yeah, a lot of guys are getting involved in these challenges and they're doing these dances. Like, okay, like
Yeah,
it might seem funny and it might generate you a lot of attention, but what kind of message are you really sending off? Like,
yeah. It's interesting how you talk about like the concept of just a man approaching a woman, right? That's just the traditional way of doing. Well, no, I mean that's not traditional way of doing things. It's like a more modern traditional way of doing things, right? Um, and that's interesting. Like that in some places that's considered harassment. And look, the feminists about to come for me when I say this, but sometimes I'm like, feminism. It's almost doing us harm as women, like the extreme feminists, right? It's okay to be about women and women power, but again, to your point, how do you turn that off? And find the delicacy and the softness of being a woman. And that's also a really amazing part of being a woman too. And I had to learn that. Like I was the kind of girl that was like, look, I'm gonna lift this box. I don't need you. I don't need you. And then I hurt my back and I was like, oh, I need a man. Right? And then sometimes it's like things like that. And so also knowing that men like to be needed. That's another big thing. Men like to be needed. And so it's not, I'm not gonna say we're a lost cause, because I think there is a shift. I think there's a shift in America specifically where people want to go back to traditional culture and traditional values. But then there's also the other side that's like, no, we want to keep this like modern day of living. But sometimes this modern day, really just edgy way of living that we have right now is just really, it's challenging, it's complicated, it makes everything much 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 more complicated in our society. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people who choose to live in this complicated world, but as I'm getting older, I'm like, less complications, more simplicity, right?
yeah.
Like dating should not be this difficult the way it is right now. But social media makes it easy for men to have many options, not show up the way they need to show up for women, or show up half-assed, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, there's some women who would take a half-assed man just to have a half-assed man. No, just to have a man in general.
So do you
Hmm.
believe that social media has been more of a benefit for men than for women?
I think it's equal. I really do think it's equal. Depends on what each person wants. I think men, all they gotta do is just search. There's plenty of girls online that are like pretty cute, posting all the selfies, all the filters, all the, alluring photos. Because girls now, they just post their naked body. Girls, I've scrolled and seen butts and boobs, and I just be like, okay, well, this is the time we live in. If that is what men can find in within seconds, Why commit?
You
Like,
see, like,
of
and it's strange because guys will deal with those women, but they won't form like long-term relationships with those women.
course,
So
of
it's like,
course not, right?
so it's yeah, it's very strange. Like I find that both sides will eventually come to the inevitable conclusion that they both need one another.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know because it's easy to say that, right? But then you think about, like, for example, women who want to have babies and they can't find that person. There's many women out here who are just choosing to have a baby as a single mom and just find it, get the sperm donor, and then boom.
Mhm.
And at that point, there was no man, like there was no need for okay, there is a need because you need the sperm, but there's no need to have like our partner there to make this baby happen. So I find it hard to believe that we're going to get to people realize, oh, I need you, we need each other. I think it's maturity. I think it's life experiences. I think it's realization that, like, you get old and like one day you just ain't that guy. Like, you ain't it. You ain't that girl no more. You ain't that guy no more. There's a next generation beneath you that is that person. Right? They are the coolest thing. Like, I'm dealing with that right now. I'm like, yo, I am not Gen Z and I don't know what's going on. I am not cool anymore. So let me move on. And also, for me specifically, not to like turn down the mood here, but like my grandma's aging, right? And so I'm seeing what looking old and being old feels like, but what's going to happen to me? So
Mhm.
why the hell would I want to be alone? No. And I think these are some realizations that people come to. I think another thing that makes people realize, oh, I need someone, is when your friends around you start coupling up too. Then
Mhm.
you become that one single person and you're like, okay, I need to find somebody, right? Because I ain't trying to be out here solo bolo all the time. All my friends got kids now, they're married, and that does it. So I think it's just natural life progression, maturity, and this also realizing, like, yo, my life is not infinite. My life is temporary, and so I'm going to age. I want to make sure I have, at least for me, I want to have someone there with me by my side as I age, or ability to have kids with someone and have some kids take care of me if that's even going to be an option. So I think there's a natural realization, like, oh, I need someone, but I don't think it's our whole society that's gonna wake up and feel that. I think that's just a natural thing that happens biologically in maturity.
I think something has to take place. Like it's strange because both sides, if you listen to them, they all say the same thing, right? Like they all have the same complaints. They're all having the same struggles, but
Yeah,
no one is finding nobody. So there is a disconnect somewhere, and it's very tough to pinpoint. So I think it's going to take, both sides being accountable, both sides doing the work, and both sides being honest. Who needs to do more work than the other? It's tough to say. I couldn't
yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't really definitively say, like, I'm not going to say, oh, it's all women's fault, but I'm not going to also say it's all men's fault. Like I would say it's both sides' fault.
It's both sides. Yeah, I agree. It's both sides. I think it's just, I don't know. We live in a really crazy world because, sometimes okay, so I love female rap. I'll be out here in my car like, I'm that girl that with like Cardi B comes on or like Megan Thee Stallion comes on, right? But when you listen to what they're talking about, they're not actually promoting to go get a man,
Yeah.
right? They're promoting like, girl, you can do it on your own. I don't need a man. You can do this. Some information that we consume and process, and when we listen to this music and believe, to an extent. And so there are girls. I mean, even being in college, I remember having friends who'd be like, "Oh no, I didn't sugar that. I just want to come in and pay for this. I'm just gonna sleep with him. I don't need nothing else. I'm just gonna sleep with him." It's very transactional. I find that behavior hasn't stopped. If anything, it's amplified now. And you don't have to go too far to know that. YouTube will tell you that. Girls will be on YouTube telling their whole dating life, telling what they're looking for. Like they don't really want anyone serious, or I just want to be taken out to eat. I'm just going on this date so I can get some free food. Right? So, man, I feel for guys, and also I think another disconnect is like the pressure of the first date. Okay, there's still girls who like, you need to take me out to eat. We need to go to a nice restaurant. Blah blah blah. Blah. And for a man, I can see a man being like, yo, this is expensive dating. I don't even know if I like you yet. Why would you go to this expensive restaurant? So there's little moments of disconnects, right? So I think both sides have to align on like what a good, like, just find that middle ground, right? So you can actually meet halfway, and also just being open. People now are really closed off. We're really individualistic. I find that just allowing myself to be open, be more willing to take a risk,
Mhm.
it can set me up course, some tears, right? But it also set me up for really great experiences. I think that's the change that people have to come through. Like, take a risk, don't be lazy, make effort, and going with the good intentions. Like, we have to, to me, I think we have to go back to like traditional moral value in a way,
I agree.
like
I
it
agree.
just for the sake of the population, for the sake of procreating, right?
Hmm.
Because everyone wants a baby. All these girls, I want a baby. How are they gonna get that if they don't get a man?
Yeah.
Like, so it doesn't actually add up. Yeah. So I think we have a long way to go before we get there. But both, like you said, both sides really do have to make some compromises.
Yeah, I do agree. I definitely do agree with that. Like, I think there has to be some kind of traditional values
Yes.
that people can be guided by and like go by when making these decisions. Because right now, like, there's really a heavy promotion of like, yeah, hookup culture.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
the same way like these women, they have this fascination with like Cardi B and having like hot girl summers and doing all this stuff. Like, I'm equally fascinated, like when I see guys with their obsession with Future and wanting to be toxic like him, right? But these are the people that society is pedestalizing and
Mm-hmm.
making it seem like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the way you have to be. But
Yeah.
like, what they don't tell you, or what's always left out of the equation, is Cardi B is married, Nicki Minaj
Yep.
is married with a kid,
Yep.
and then Megan Thee Stallion, I think she's in a relationship. So these girls are not living what they're promoting, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And people forget that this stuff is just entertainment. It's just there for show.
Yeah. It's literally, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, like, when you see an actor kill someone in the movie, they didn't kill someone in real life. It's a movie. They're playing a role. That's what these celebrities are doing. So stop taking what they say so seriously, right? But people listen to the stuff and then they take it as like the gospel and then they run with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not conducive for what society needs to propel forward.
Yeah, I agree, but it's entertainment, right? What makes money? Money sells. I mean, well, not well, the money does sell, but like the type of things we're consuming, that's what makes money, right? But you have to understand, right? Like, there's what they're talking about that make them that we listen to, and there's also at the business level, they're like, you have to talk about these things because that's what makes us money, right? So if any of these female rappers ever came out with a song about I love him, blah, blah, we don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? Like, there's actually like a natural embedded anger. Like, it looks like we're angry or unhappy as a culture. We enjoy that because we keep listening to the same thing. These songs all talk about the same thing. They're just wordsmithed differently. But if you think about it, they are speaking to our traumas and our anger and like our soulless selves. They're not things that like we want to my life being like I love, don't get me wrong, I love me some Cardi. I love her. But some things she be talking about, I'm like, "Ugh, girl, but you got a whole big house, you got a mansion. I can't relate with you, no matter what you're talking about." And sometimes I have to stop myself. I'm like, listen, now I love female rap, but sometimes I'm like, let me turn this shit off because this is poisoning my mind. I need to listen to some love songs or something. But also, this is a genre of music. It's one genre. Okay. So if it's only one genre, what are the other genres saying? Right? So
Like,
is this an issue with just in the Black community where we're not finding our persons? Because also other people finding their people.
yeah, like, this is a very deep conversation, and I do believe that this is something that is purposely done within the Black community itself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Because, if you look at certain like other cultures, right? I've never heard Jackie Chan ever speak about the issues that affect the Chinese community. Like, they have
No.
they have designated people that will deal with that. Do they have
Mm-hmm.
issues in that community? I'm sure they do.
Of
They're human,
course.
right? But
Yeah.
they do a good job of keeping it in house. The
Mm-hmm.
problem with our people, one of the many problems that I have, is that we let too much external ideologies that are foreign to us enter our
Yes.
culture. So one of them
Mm-hmm.
being, I would say, like feminism, right? What it's done in a way is it's because feminism, if you look at it historically, it was never really designed for Black women to thrive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Black women were
Mm-hmm.
actually purposely forced out of it, right? But it's something that has been brought into our culture, And I think what it's been done, it's been used as a way to manipulate that tension that exists between black men and black women, and it's keeping them apart more than it's helping them actually come to the table and work on resolutions, right?
Mhm.
And then I think just the fact that, and I have nothing against, I have nothing against like athletes or entertainers or anything, but when they're positioned to be thought leaders in the culture, I find that to be very problematic because
Yes.
they're not qualified to speak on the issues.
100%.
Yeah, like Jackie Chan does not speak about Chinese issues. You don't hear Bollywood actors. I'm sure they have personal opinions on it, but they've never spoken out as advocates. But then
Yeah.
for some reason, an athlete or a singer can suddenly have the license to talk about the black community. It's like, why do these people have to be the mouthpiece for us?
Mhm.
Why
Mhm.
don't we have people in academia that can actually go out and speak to the issues? Why are we looking to guys that play sports to do that? And I think it is something that they purposely do within our community.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's I like, we idolize these people, right? Like, we put them on this pedestal, like you said, and, like, we worship them to an extent, and I think that is part of the problem. And then this is such a deep topic, right? There's so many aspects that to why our community is like this, but you think about an athlete, right? Like, little kids, little young black kids, depending on how you're growing up, you might look at athletes and be like, that's what I want to do. I want to grow up and be like Stephen Curry, right? I want to grow up and be this. I want, because your environment may not expose you to anything else. So yeah, you use Steph Curry in these prominent roles in these different ads or whatever it is to reach the young minds, to reach the passionate people who idolize this person and pass your message through. That's how you're going to reach that person. If you try to get a scholar from UC Berkeley or Stanford or whatever to come talk about whatever issues that these celebrities be talking about, it's not going to get through. So it's a marketing play. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it all comes down to business. Everything about this country, everything about any aspect of this world is making money, period. Especially in America, making money. I'm gonna pay, how much does celebrity want? Okay, here's your money for this endorsement to show up in my commercial, but I'm actually gonna make 3 times what I just paid you. You know what I mean? By way of circulating your voice around. And so it is to me a way of controlling the black community at the end of the day. It is keeping us in a certain level, keeping our mindsets and minds at a certain level so that we don't like actually achieve or get married or have kids or you know start our own business, whatever it is. It is everything about what we consume as black people in our black culture is strategic to me.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think when you have families, it starts in the household, and then those
Hmm.
households become communities, and then that community eventually grows, right?
Hmm.
But what they're doing is using, like I think music and mass
Hmm.
media as a way of manipulation, right? And I think, yeah, that
Yeah.
keeps people operating on a much lower level that we
Hmm.
see unfortunately happening in our community that you don't really see happening within other
Yep.
communities, right? And it kind of goes back to what I was saying, like with the whole masculinity and femininity thing,
Hmm.
because a lot of cultures now are doubling down on these things and enforcing masculine images amongst their people,
Hmm.
right? So like for example in China, like they've instituted laws where like now on media and television and stuff you cannot show images of men in a non-masculine way, and they're actually introducing masculinity
Hmm.
into their curriculum because
Oh.
they understand that these things can become a crisis.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you look at what's happening now here,
Hmm.
like especially like within like a Western context, like we're
Yeah.
seeing the direct effect of it here, right?
Yeah.
So it's these things do matter, and I think the content that we consume, I think it does matter. I think the music that we're listening to and putting into our subconscious, like these things do
Yep.
matter because
Hmm.
yeah, it might sound good, it might be entertaining, but the long-term effects it's far more harmful than it is beneficial.
Yeah, but this, I agree to an extent, right? Because I think about like masculinity. This is tough because I also think when you think about the LGBTQ community, you think about a gay man, like his masculinity. Like, for example, remember when Harry Styles wore that like skirt on the cover of a magazine and like the whole Western world went crazy,
Yeah.
right? it's images like that. And I'm not saying those images are wrong, and I'm not saying that they're right, but I'm saying that there's just Western our acceptance of inclusivity and like you can be whatever you want in this country is a beautiful thing. And it's allowed people in different communities that have had to hide themselves so comfortable being themselves. I love that. The result of that is the confusion, the threat to masculinity and femininity too, right? Like it's on both sides. And so it is a complicated world. Well, let me think, it's a complicated country. Rephrase myself. Complicated country. And we are bickering amongst ourselves from politics all the way down, right? Trying to figure out these things, trying to exist in this new world and make sense of it. And it's tough because we're putting rules and regulations, we're banning things, right? Like, so and in some ways I feel like for a couple of years now there's part of the country, there's part of people here in the Western world that want to just go forward and everything's open and diverse and you be whoever you want to be. Okay, and there's a strong side on the opposition coming through being like no, and they've been silent for a long time. They're like, oh, hell no. And this is why we're seeing all the things we're seeing in the media, in the news, in the politics. They're like, oh no, because we like our traditional values, we like the way things used to be. So it's friction. It's friction. They don't fit. They're literally like two different types of people that can literally live in two different countries, living in the same place, trying to like cohabitate together. It just doesn't work. And so I think this is the problem, right? And so I think it's just a cluster.
Yeah,
Let's just say it.
Too much. It's too much polarization, right?
Yeah, it's too polarizing.
Yeah, there's too much polarization where it's like now it's like you're either this side or this side, right? And I think for me, like what I find challenging is okay, like what about someone like me who I don't identify myself as like someone who's liberal or I don't identify myself as someone who's conservative.
Yeah, same.
I'm not any of those things. Like I just look at things on a case by case basis, right? So however you want to identify yourself, like, that's your choice. Like your identity is your identity, right? But I think for the faction of society that, tends to uphold more traditional values, I think, that's really kind of who I gear my message towards. I mean, when I talk about masculinity, I'm kind of talking about it from the sense of like, like hetero, intersexual dynamics. So I can't speak for those other communities. Maybe they have their own crises going on. Who knows? I don't know, right? But
Yeah.
I don't speak on those things. But there's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. And it's so interesting you talk about like being liberal versus conservative, right? Because that even comes back into dating, right? It's like you can't be of the opposite. Like it's I would find it be very difficult to date, to be whatever you want to consider yourself, however you identify politically, and then date someone of the opposite political side of the spectrum, right? It's just we're so polarized and we're so far apart, like polar ends of the spectrum, that some of us in the middle, we can't even find each other. Some of us in the middle that would actually be great partners together, we over here like, where are you, bro? Because we're actually so far in between. Because some people, there's so many people that they're choosing to identify in one or the other. I'm like you, I don't really fall on either side. I feel like I'm in the middle. I'm very much in the middle. And so I've been looking around like, bro, where is a guy that just out here? Like we're just normal people. We want to live a normal life. Okay. Have some kids, have a dog, maybe buy a house. We're not trying to do too much. We don't feel strongly either way about things, That I feel like it's really difficult to find. And it also depends on where you live, right? In California, I talk about people are hating when I say this, but California is full of fakest liberals I have ever met in my life. Okay, and so that's why I'd be here, my dating here is very difficult. For me, it's very hard. And I'm just like, I can't relate with you. First of all, there's no Black people. We have a very small population in California. Not that I'm only going to date Black, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, dude, that's easy for me because culturally we can relate, you get it. But then at the political level, which I'm talking about politics, like that, it's inevitable it's going to come up. It's like, yo, I can't. It's a no for me, And so again, it's complex. It's challenging now because there's too many factors beyond just the simple traditional factors that there used to be to date someone and have it be worked out, because someone will write you off just because of your political nature. It's right? Like, oh, you're a Republican? Oh, I can't date you. You don't like LGBTQ community? Oh, I can't date you.
It's so crazy that how polarizing it became. Because on one hand, it's like, hey, we live in a democracy, so everyone's free to support with who they want, and we
Yeah.
believe in freedoms, right? Then it's like, oh, you don't
Hmm.
agree with me on this? Oh no, you're a bad person. So,
Right. Yeah.
so it's like, okay,
Which
where do
I
you
think it's
like the irony of that? Like, so it's like, where do you draw that line? Like,
it's bizarre, right? To be like, we're open. Everyone, we love everybody. Just be yourself. But oh, you like this person? Oh no, it's enough for me on you. You know? No, you're right. Where do you draw the line? And so, guys, it's just division, and I don't even know what the right answer is. Actually, I do know what the right answer is. Leave America.
yeah,
Legit, I was in Colombia for like the last 3 months, and it was like the most amazing 3 months because I just wasn't caught up in it. I was able to even just feel like I can breathe and not feel like the all pressures and challenges of American society that exists without you really noticing.
yeah. I think
It's
that's been
subtle.
Yeah, I think that's been I think the biggest lesson that a lot of people learn, I think the past couple of years, is that, once you kind of step outside of the Western world,
Hmm.
you realize that there's a different kind of life there. And I think
Yeah.
there's more traditionalism, there's more
Yes.
family values that are instilled
Hmm.
within society. But yeah,
Yeah. And it's
once
nice. It's nice to see, and
you
it's nice to exist in. I think the challenges outside the U.S. is like the strong religious aspects, right?
Mhm.
Which can be jarring. Because in America, I'm like, religion, oh, I don't know what's happening to it, right?
Yeah.
So pros and cons, right? But when you're right, when you step outside the Western world, you see these like just traditional values being held. It's just so nice to see.
Yeah, it's definitely something that seems like it's missing here.
Yeah, it's tough though because we're such a diverse country with different religions, different traditional family values. Right, we don't have just this one homogenous thing. And I think our country, from politics all the way down to family values to dating to parenting to a lot of different things, we have to just find this like groove of like what is normal for us, right? Like what is not even normal, like what do we stand for? Like what do we holistic, like all one accord? We're not all one accord. I think that's the biggest problem. We had to find a one accord and then we will find a good group, but that ain't never happened in this country. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
So I think you know what it is. It's about finding your micro community. Find your micro community where you can actually like find people who share the similar values as you.
I think that's a strong note to end this conversation. I would definitely love to have
Yeah.
you on for future episodes,
Okay.
your conversations on like various topics. But anything you want to conclude with before we finish?
You know, to all my girls out there looking for love, girl, just get a dog. Just get a dog, girl. It's gonna be a lot easier. They're gonna love you. And no, I'm just kidding. Keep trying. I'm out here still trying. I'm meeting guys and doing my thing, but just focus on you in a healthy, feminine way, right? Like just do you, girl. And that's all I can say to the guys out there. I'm single. Post my picture, okay? Let's let them know. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, that's it.
And are you on social media? How can people get connected with you or find you?
Yes, at Miss Latoya Cherise Hall on Instagram. That's where I primarily am. If you like my vibe, I be on my stories all the time, and it is like a whole show up there. So you can always hit me up in my DMs, but be cordial, please. Okay, you be my DMs, and we can chat.
Perfect.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Till next time.
Till next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wire to Wire podcast. Be sure to share and subscribe. You can also check out all of my books, including my latest one, Quarantine Thoughts, available at all major retailers. You can also follow me on Instagram at Yusuf_A official. Until next time.